That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Okay, let's go ahead and go on to Green Lantern, No Fear. God, this is good. And I'm glad to be talking about trades again. I'm sorry for such a long break, but shit is crazy over here sometimes, guys. Just goddamn. Okay, so No Fear is a book that is split up as two separate stories that don't really have too much to do with each other, except just both continuing the build-up toward Blackest Night. But they do stand on their own fairly well. We have Hal Jordan. We actually get three stories. Flight is an incredibly emotional story for me that I absolutely adore, and I think just perfectly captures who Hal Jordan as a character is, and is really worth reading just on its own at some point. I did a motion comic of that years ago. The performances aren't great, but if you'd like to check that out, somebody else uploaded it to YouTube, so I'll leave a link to that video in the description. But I did make it. You can hear my voice in it. My name's all over it. So are my friends that helped me voice it and stuff. But Flight just on its own is a beautiful story, and I absolutely adore it, and I think it just perfectly captures who Hal Jordan is and what drives him as a person, and just perfectly shows you how he thinks the way he thinks and why he thinks the way he thinks. And it does a lot to inform this next story that we get into, which is called something, if I remember. I don't think they... Yeah, the way this... Yeah, it's just called No Fear. The way this is edited, it's not very well done. Because they don't put covers in between the issues. But let me start, unfortunately, with a nitpick. Okay, so the Green Lantern uniform, as we should all know by this point, is not fabric. They even have a cool little conversation, because this is Geoff Johns trying to make Green Lantern just, cool and fascinating and unique. So this pilot that Hal Jordan saves goes, "Ow, the green on your uniform, it's hot. It's not fabric. And the black is cold, most of the time." Uh-huh. And so we clearly see in this that there's a scene explaining that the Green Lantern uniform is not fabric. It's a construct made by the Ring. And then we have this amazing Alex Ross cover. And Alex Ross is a beautiful fucking artist, and he will only do the costumes in their traditional sense. Here's the thing. Hal Jordan's wearing the traditional costume. But Alex Ross draws it like fabric. You can see the folds. Stop doing that. That's... Nah. Like, it wouldn't be a problem if it were literally on any other cover in the Green Lantern series. But it's on No Fear. The book where we specifically say it's not fabric that he's wearing. And so my inner nerdness is just like... and shit about that. And that... legitimately, it pisses me off. Like, come on. Not everything has to look like the movie. I still think the movie's costume is fantastic, but not everything has to look like the movie. But it is very firmly established at this point that it's not fabric. It was at one time. I will grant you that. There is a panel of a really old Hal Jordan Green Lantern comic where he shoots his ring up in the air to form a little construct, and like a green closet opens up, and he has the uniform on a hanger. It did happen. It's like a parallel dimension that he keeps the uniform in. But still, it's not that way anymore. We shouldn't continue doing it. Okay. So what happens in this first story? We get a lot of background on Hal Jordan, and we had that in Secret Origin, of course. But we get a lot more background on Hal Jordan and how he got to the point he was before the whole Green Lantern or Parallax thing happened. And now he's kind of trying to return in some ways to that point in his life. The government, this is also where we start to set up the Coast City initiative. The government has rebuilt Coast City from the ground up, and is offering all kinds of incentives for people to move there, but it's a ghost town. No one wants to move there. There's a pun about it, like you hear radio announcers at different points and newscasters and stuff saying things like, no one wants to move to Ghost City. And you even have Hal Jordan's brother come visit him, because this is the first time that he's seen him since the whole Parallax thing went down. You have him come visit him, and he's like, you should move to Coast City. We need to show people that we don't have to live in fear of what might happen. This is like a big symbolic thing. And he's like, no, some other supervillain's just going to wipe it off the map. You don't have to be here doing this whole superhero thing. You can escape it all. Just come live out in Sacramento with me and the kids. You can get a job as like an airplane mechanic or something. You don't have to do this kind of work. You don't have to put yourself out there and risk your life. And Hal's whole point is, no, you do have to. You have to show everyone what it means to do the right thing, what it means to not be afraid. And then there's some Manhunter stuff in here that's kind of cool too, but it's really not the part of the story that I like. And you get like Hal's brother's character arc in this story is fantastic. We get a military guy, colonel or whatever, who's being set up as like Hal Jordan's Commissioner Gordon. I don't really feel one way or the other about that. It's kind of obvious and silly, but what can you do? Insurance salesman of the year, Jim Jordan. His brother's an insurance salesman. That's good writing. That's really good writing for a character like this. I've often wondered what insurance is like in superhero universes. Oh wow, they put a lot of detail into this scene. There's just this one panel with all these details. There's a plaque on the wall that says Insurance Salesman of the Year, Jim Jordan. There's some books on the table. How to Protect Your Children from the Media. The Something of Life in a Superhero Community. The Risks of Life in a Superhero Community. And 100 Things to Make You Safer. Are just books he has lying on the table. So we have a character who is the complete opposite of his brother and lives his entire life just surrounded about the fear of what might happen, to the point it is choking his ability to live in the moment. And so he's having this conversation with his family. It's too dangerous. How many times do I have to tell him, Susan? No football. Howard, he loves it. Howard loves it, Jim. When he's 18, he can do what he wants. You can't protect the kids by having them stay inside all day. Yeah, all the other kids get to play. Some of them with their dads. And his daughter, I want to watch cartoons. They're too violent, honey. Why don't you both go read a... And then we have the news kind of interrupt this little home scene. More reports that the Green Lantern has returned to Coast City despite this, or perhaps because of it. Most analysts expect that without the influx of people Congress was hoping for, construction will be halted by Friday, and Ghost City will be just that. And Jim's wife looks at him and says, your brother's still trying. And then we get some more Manhunter fight stuff, and Hal's ring is completely depleted because of the Manhunter's new ability to absorb Green Lantern power. And this is one of the cool scenes in the book, too. The Manhunter wrecks the plane jet that Hal's in. and his power level is completely drained at that point. He has no ability to fly, and the jet is now crashing. And he goes, believe it or not, I still got a plan. And he jumps out of the plane, or no, he goes, come on, Jordan, keep her steady. Hal jumps out of the plane as it explodes, says the oath as he falls towards the manhunter that drained all his ring energy, and sticks his fist in the thing's face as he finishes the oath to regain his charge on his ring, and then saves Coast City from a exploding self-destruction manhunter. That's a really cool scene. But again, not my favorite thing about this book. There's another cool, fun scene where Hal admits that he's made mistakes and that he needs to take responsibility for them. It doesn't matter what his reasons were or what factors were changing it. Great stuff there too. But what I really, really love about this is him looking at Ghost City as the book end, or as the chapter ends. This might have been a mistake, all of it. That Manhunter's last words are still stuck in my head. It lived for over 3 billion years, and it never felt a damn shred of emotion. And then, in its last moment of existence, it finally figures one out. I look around today at the way we live. We're arming security systems, putting metal detectors in schools, and looking over our shoulders on airplanes. The news shouts, tonight at 11, find out which major drug company could make you sick. Is this the life I'm coming back to? Is this the strongest emotion in the universe? Is fear what controls everyone and everything? And then he sees Jim moving to town with his family. Yeah, I didn't think so. And we end on this great panel of Hal flying over his brother and his family's car as the Green Lantern. Fantastic ending of a story arc, and then we get teased for later stuff, blah blah blah. And then the second story in this I do like. It's kind of just John's getting to do something that I guess my biggest criticism of John's is, no, it's definitely my biggest criticism, is that he got too drawn into setting up for the next story, that he didn't give enough time to just breathe for a bit and tell some just individual one-off fun stories. And this has setup in it for Black Hand, but it's also got some just fun, cool, wacky sci-fi one-offness in it. The main villain of this story are the gremlins from back in the day. There were the legends of, like, airline pilots seeing gremlins on the wings of their planes, or that were, like, taking it apart or whatever, messing with the planes. Yeah, those are the villains of this story arc. Why not? It's fucking cool. They apparently mess with primitive technology and biology to make them themselves weapons to sell on the intergalactic black market. Love it. So these two army base guys hit an alien that looks like the most quintessential alien possible, big round head, big eyes, that whole thing, super skinny everywhere else. They hit it on the side of the road, and its last words as it dies are, "I just went out for a smoke." And they're like, what? So they're doing an autopsy on the thing, and the coroner goes, "He did say some words in English to the driver." What? It's really silly. What did he say? He said he went out for a cigarette. He went out for a ring. Analyze DNA structure. Scanning. Scan complete. Target terrestrial in origin. Homo sapien pastoris 50 cycles. What's that mean? It means that this isn't an alien body. It's human. About 50,000 years further down the evolutionary chain than us. What, you're saying it's from the future? I don't think so. And then we get some Hector Hammond stuff. They make Hector Hammond so damn creepy in this book. Just so damn creepy. Get some Hector Hammond stuff. And then there's another just really cool ass scene where we got... It's basically Jaws. Oh, shit. It's seriously basically Jaws, though. You got two people out swimming in the water. Only the guy goes under, and the woman's like, oh my god, and she swims to shore as the shark chases her. And then she's like, she gets onto the beach, and she goes, I'm safe. And then like an eyeball just drops on her shoulder. She's got this look of absolute terror on her face as she looks at it. And then we get this guy. That's just cool. It's a shark that can walk on land and stuff. That's just clever, fun stuff. It's just John's having fun and doing a lot of cool stuff. We get the origin of Black Hand's hand in this issue, too. Really just a cool book. I really quite enjoy it. There's a fight with Hal and the shark. Black Hand does his thing. The gremlins show up. It's kind of all over the place, but in a fun way. Biggest complaint I have about this story arc is we just have the most drastic, distracting change in art style. So, it's kind of got its very particular art style, kind of more, not really realistic, colored in a very particular way. And then the last issue is just a completely different style that is hyper-realistic and colored and lit in a very specific, interesting, almost creepy way. And it kind of works for the creepiness of where they are, but not at all when it's that drastic a change in the story. And the art just doesn't fit with what's going on. That is the biggest problem of this second arc. It's not only distracting, it just doesn't work for it. I would have, for the fact that everything is now written for trade, we should put more of an emphasis on having one artist per story arc than we do on making sure the issue is out on time the next month. If you're gonna write for trade in such a specific way as this is, you should really focus more on that. And there's also a little bit of fun. Why were these, like, Hal defeats them, and he takes the gremlins to some other Green Lanterns that are from a neighboring space sector to take them back home and, face trial there. And he goes, why were these things in you two, why are you speaking German? German? That's Krolotian. What, you think Egypt is the only place on that mudball that stole their language from off-world? Next you'll be telling us the Earthmen invented the match. Bye. And bye forever to those characters, because those two never show up again. What can you do? Yeah, I don't know, I really like that stuff. It's just cool. It's a fun book. There's not, like, a ton of deep going on outside of Jim's character arc. Just general fear of everything is kind of Jim's thing, and there's some cool ass covers too. I like covers. Fear of everything is kind of Jim's, like, defining character arc, and so to have him be inspired by Hal to get over that and go try to be a symbol, try to act in such a way that is fundamentally healthy is really good. Yeah. Really good book. Some of the most fun, just randomness in the Johns run in No Fear. And again, Flight is just an incredibly touching story for me. I think it perfectly sums up who Hal Jordan is and why he acts the way he does. I'm not crazy about the Manhunter stuff, but I thought it was fine. It makes sense to reintroduce them and make them more of a threat, show that they are, like, they're evolving along with the Green Lantern Corps, they're not just static, so that's fine. Again, biggest problem is just the art shift in the last issue, but, you know, that's kind of just a problem for a lot of comics, and so it's more of a critique of the industry than it is of this particular book itself. But it is still a problem in it, so I wanted to mention that.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.